Can you see my screen?
Yes, I'm seeing your screen.
Okay, great. Today, and I hope you can still hear. Okay, you have responded. That means you can hear me. We shall be looking at regulatory requirements and building codes. Now, every country has its form of rules. Regulatory requirements are the kind of rules and regulation that governs whatever activities that happen in building construction and all the elements that has to do with building. And these rules are to be maintained for adequate construction and to give consistency and safety to every building that you'll be probably living in or you are required to stay or walk around. The presidential outline, we look at the introduction, look at the administration of the building code, you look at requirements and enforcement, you look at technical details, and look at building maintenance standards. What is a building code? There are sets of rules that specify the minimum standard for construction, for constructed objects, such as buildings and non-building structures. Now, whether they are building structures or they're not building, I hope you can hear me. Hello?
Yes,
Yes,
we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, great. Okay. Now you have building structures which are used to. We also have non-building structures, elements or things, maybe like a car, let's say like a fan or something like that, or just some equipments or thereabout that are not structures. They have codes that are guiding them, so that when you are building these things, there are minimum required standard that you are supposed to meet. You can go above it, but the minimum requirement is something that you must use. Usually applied to engineers, architects designing the buildings. That's why it is very important for us as professionals to always consult the right professional once you are required to build a structure. You see the right, you see the architects. The architects gives you the proper design for what you want to do. It's just like you are sick and you decide, instead of going to the hospital to go and see a doctor, you now go to see a herbalist. They will make prescription for you. Sometimes the prescription will work, but one of the dangers we find when we go to meet herbalists is that they are not able to give the exact dosage of what is required. But our doctors understand better, and with the use of equipment, they can let you know exactly what's wrong with you and prescribe the right drugs after going through tests. That is the kind of thing that engineers and architects do. They are more experienced. They know how to manage the requirements of buildings, and they know the dynamic and the differentials that occur in the different level of soil, the kind of land that you probably want to build, the topography and how to manage it, the landscape, the specifications that are required for such areas, for the kind of soil, the kind of terrain, the kind of region, whether it's the rainforest region, whether it's the temperate region, whether it's the desert region. There are different building types that fit these different regions, and they know the best things to be able to do depending on the codes and the requirements that are required. They serve as guide for safety inspectors. Now, safety inspectors are expected to visit buildings from time to time. You have fire inspectors, you have sanitary inspectors, you have building compliance inspectors, which they have building agencies like the LASBAC, or what they call LASBAC in Lagos, LASBACA, some people call it, that's in Lagos, that go around to buildings to inspect what you are doing in your building to ensure that you are meeting with the minimum required standard. Also, building codes have been used by governmental units for centuries to ensure that buildings remain safe and sanitary. Building remains safe. Buildings must be safe for people to inhabit. Government will always want to provide those codes so that buildings are always safe for people to inhabit. Now, you have types of building code. You have the national code. national building code, you have the modern building code, and you have the international building code. National building code is developed by the government agency or quasi-governmental standards enforced across the country by federal government. Like Nigeria, Nigeria has its own building code. However, it is not very popular. The most popular one is the British code, which of course British are the one that colonized Nigeria, and Nigerian code is like a subset of British building code, because it's the building British code is like the major standard that was used to prepare the Nigerian building code. The Nigerian building code is domesticated to Nigeria. I don't know why it's not that popular, because maybe because of the peculiarity of the country anyway, so that they can just ensure that buildings in Nigeria comply with the minimum required standards as it affects our region, which is the temperate region and a little bit of the sub-Sahara desert area, the savanna areas, which is also occurring part of Nigeria. Modern building codes, this is where the power of regulating construction and fire safety is vested in the local or subnational authorities. Like Nigeria has a building code. Lagos State also has its own. Lagos State falls under this modern building code. It regulates the buildings that are built around their own state, maybe because of some peculiarity, some things that needs to be done. They give the minimum requirement. If you want to do a borehole now, Lagos State have an agency that manages that. If you want to do sewage treatment plant, Lagos State have an agency that do that. In fact, they will have to come and certify your treatment plants first before you can operate it, to ensure that whatever waste you are treating is properly treated, and the influence and what you are giving out into the environment is safe enough not to cause hazard to the people around. Also, we have the International Building Code. This is where the power of regulating construction and fire is vested in international institutions to which local and national jurisdictions have signed up to adopt common conventions. This is very popular in probably the aviation industry, because a lot of airports interact with a lot of international flights. So they're expected to comply to the international standard before your airport can be deemed as an international airport. It must meet the minimum required standard. Also, some level of hotels. You have the 5-star hotel, you have 7-star, you have 3-star, you have 2-star. For international use, the minimum required standard is like a 3-star hotel. We must have some things which they are used to. That's why they have those gradings. As it goes up, it's required that you meet up with a lot of this required standards. Now, building regulations parts. Now, for building regulations, there are some different parts I looked at, which they focus. The building code itself, look at these different parts and see how to manage it. One of the parts that the building the rules and the regulation looks at is the structure itself. The structure itself, they look at how stable the structure is. They look at the structural stability of the building. That's why they will give advice, they give rules on what is required. They also look at the area covered, including design of foundation, the walls, the floors, and the roof components. Those are the things that the code checks. Like for LASBAC now, if you are doing anything with LASBAC, doing any major construction in Lagos State, LASBAC will come. And these are the things they will check. They will check your foundation, they will check your building, the walls, they will check the floors, they will check the columns, they will check the beams, they will also check the roof component that you are using, and give you what they call stage certification, so that at the end of the day, they can say, okay, this building has passed the certification process, and then they will now issue what they call fitness certificate of fitness of rehabilitation. That's what LASBAC will give you if you have gone through their process. The next thing we'll look at is the fire safety. Normally, once you are doing any structure, the Fire Service Commission will visit that building to ensure that the minimum requirement is designed and planned into that building for fire safety. In case there is fire, what are the things they look at? They look at your preparation to be able to fight fire minimally. And two, they also look at the escape routes from the building when there's fire. They also look at how you will be able to access the building in case there is emergency, in case there's fire, so that when the building, the fire safety truck is coming, they can find access into the building to be able to fight fire from the outside, while you make preparation to fight it for also from inside. They also look at the preventing the spread of fire from one building to the other, providing also good access to firefighting facilities for the fire service. Once there is a fire, you need to make adequate preparation so that the fire truck can come in, and not also only come in. Normally, there's what is prepared in firefighting. You have the wet line and the dry line. The dry line is where the fire service, once they come in, they plug they connect their water source into it and use it to power the building in case the building water supply has failed or is finished, so that they're able to fight the fire from both from outside and from inside. Also, one of the things that the regulation also look at, they look at site preparation and resistance to contaminants and moist. This has to do with most factories or thereabouts. The recommendation for making sure that your property remains free from damp prevention and also condensation. That's damp penetration and condensation. And also look at contamination that may be in the ground and the watertight watertight. And sometimes you may decide to go and build in a place, probably like in Jesse, where they are doing they have a lot of oil activities going on. And normally what that happens is that the authorities will check and ensure that where you are going to build, the place does not contain contaminants. Where you have gotten oil spills, where it has affected the land, and when you go and build there, sometimes they do a little bit of gas flaring. That will affect the health of the individuals that are going to be staying in that building. So it's very important for them to regulate this and say, oh, this area is cordoned off. It is not safe for you to build around this area because the groundwater is contaminated, the atmosphere is contaminated, and it's not good for you to also be living there. Also, one of the things they look at toxic substance, guidance on the prevention of toxic substance permeating into buildings, such when inserting insulation into cavity walls. There are some sometimes that you need to use cavity walls in a building. Cavity walls helps to prevent sound. It helps to prevent too much heat, and it's also good for soundproofing also. Normally, the styrofoam and some other chemicals can be used for this building to ensure that the soundproofing is properly well done. And even that cavity itself, they normally check to ensure that if you are building around where you have factories, where they release toxic chemicals into the atmosphere or into the general drains, sometimes they affect people, or maybe they release some toxic substance going into the canals and all that. If your building is positioned around there, those contaminants may come into your building and it will affect that. Resistance to the passage of sound. This is looking at sound attenuation, where require to reduce sound transference between dwelling flats, between certain types of rooms, and between communal areas and dwellings. That's where the environmental people come, especially when you have churches and the mosques that are positioned around very thick, hardcore residential areas. And once the churches start their program, it can also disturb people around. So they need to regulate it. So they regulate it so they get at least 80 decibel coming out within the church, which is comfortable. Anything above that to become a little bit irritant. Looking at the ventilation, they also look at the standard also look at the ventilation. This part provides for adequate levels of ventilation to buildings, prevention of condensation form in the void of roofs, in roofs void. Sometimes if you don't meet the minimal requirements in terms of condensation, it affects the building itself. And also ventilation. You discover that people will become a little uncomfortable when they stay in a building that is not properly ventilated. Another thing they look at is the hygiene of both the building and those that will be staying. Concerning with provision of sanitary conveniences and adequate washing facilities, your toilet areas and all that. Look at how it's been managed to ensure that your waste, your soil pipes and your waste from the toilets they are adequately channeled out. They are adequately channeled out of the building, so that and also not just channeled out, so that they are adequately treated, so that properly they can actually work and not become an issue. Includes requirements associated with unvented hot water storage installation. Sometimes you need to also check the hot water storage because it doesn't have issues also. They also look at the drainage and waste disposal. Drainage and waste disposal. They also look at the combustion and appliances and fire and sorry and fuel storage systems. This is when you are talking about filling stations. You have combustibles there. You see some places where you go, you see they write highly inflammable. So you need to be careful. They also need you to put those signs so that people that are smoking will not go around those areas and go and cause problems. Protection from walls, pollution, and impact concerning with staircase design, headroom, handrails, balustrades, guiding in the landing of balconies and other raised areas. You know, there are some things that you must check. In buildings, they have the standard height of a building. You must ensure that that is done. And also staircases. Staircases have a standard in terms of how the staircases should be, the height of the riser and the tread, and also the landing. Like for Lagos State now, the width of your staircase must be a minimum of 1.2 meters long, wide. 1.2 meters. If they even want to give a little bit of consideration, it must be something around 1050, 10050, which is 1.05 meters. That's the consideration they give if case is not possible. But that's the minimum of what they require to ensure that the staircase can take a normal human being and will be able to move. And the risers the basic requirement for risers is the risers are 150 while the treads are 300. Okay. We also look at conservation of fuel and power. This is when you're talking about energy efficiency, provision of minimum standard of energy efficiency to all part of the building. Look at the power consumption to ensure that the power consumption is low, so that at least you can have a lot of power and you have a lot of green areas and things that needs to be done. Access to and use of the building. You need to look at the minimum requirement to enable people to get in and out of the building at a good time. Also look at glazing safety as it relates to the impact and openings and also cleaning of buildings. Also look at the electrical safety of the buildings to ensure that the electrical installation are properly done and they meet the minimum required standard so that people don't go in there and get electrocuted in the building that probably the electrician has totally wired. Now, professional requirements. This is just to talk about the professionals that go as inspectors to manage to check for building the compliance level of building code, and also for the governmental agency, the persons that they employ in, and the minimum requirement of what they are looking at. You also, as an individual, can become an agent to the government. They can register you once you apply to be an agent, and then when they have issues of inspection, based on your expertise, they know that you see more things that needs to be inspected and checked properly. One of the requirements is that the person must be at least 18 years of age, must be of good moral character, 5 years minimum combined experience in field of construction or related field inspection or planned plans review. A combination of post-secondary education in the field of construction or related field is also a requirement. Required to be a building code administrator. The first one is required to be to become an inspector or plans examiner. Now, to become an administrator, you must be at least 18 years of age and of good moral character, 10 years of combined experience as an architect, engineer, or planning executive or examiner, sorry, with a minimum of at least 5 years of such experience in supervisory position. A combined combination of postgraduate education in the field of construction or related field is required. Purpose of building code. One, to provide established minimum standard stroke requirements for safety, health, and general welfare of the building. Also, to provide certain minimum standard and provision and requirements for safety and stability, stable design, method of construction, and use of materials in building or structures. Scope of building code. The standards for structures, placement, and sizes. The scope for standards, at least for structures, to ensure that the building is well positioned, and then look at the placement of the building to ensure that the building is properly placed, giving adequate what do you call the setbacks from the fence, observing the adequate setbacks from both the fence and from the roadside and the road area to ensure that your building is compliant with the required master plans of the state or the region. Usage and wall assembly. Egress rules. Egress rules means when you are going out of the building, the assembly, wall assembly, looking at how the walls are being put together to ensure safety. And then the usage of the building itself is something that you need to look at. The foundation, the roof structures is what the code will always cover and ensure that that's done. Then rules regarding parking and traffic impact. Now, for buildings like churches, theaters, or general educational building or office building, you are required to produce what we call the transportation impact analysis, while you also provide the environmental impact analysis. The environmental impact analysis is to check the impact of your structure on the environment. Will it be good? Will it be bad? If it is bad, government will not give you approval. If it is good, of course, they'll give you approval. Not just that, they also check to ensure that you have adequate parking provided for the building, so you don't have people parking on the outside and on the road. But of course, most buildings do not observe this because somehow, especially for the old churches, the rule has not been signed into law then. So they build buildings in such a way that they cannot even house the parking of people that needs to be there. Also, we look at fire code rules. Fire, how you manage fire. Requirements for earthquake, flood, hurricane resistance. That's what they also check. We also check at the requirements for specific building uses, the kind of buildings that they are using. If you are doing a church, if you are doing a hotel, if you are doing a hospital, there are basic requirements for special buildings. Also look at energy provisions and consumption, how you consume energy, and specifications on components, the different components that you are using on the building. How do you manage the specification? Allowable installation methodology. There are standard and ways of installing things. So normally you will manage that and ensure that the minimum standard is maintained for that. Minimum, maximum room and exit sizes and locations. Normally the regulator also will tell you the minimum size of the rooms you are using and the minimum size of the opening that is required. In Lagos, for instance, the minimum size for a bedroom is 12 by 10. It was 12 by 12 before. Because of the real estate developers, they've gone to fight. They said, okay, but the best that Lagos State have done is the 10 by 12 room. That's the minimum requirement standard. Your rooms must not be smaller than that for a bedroom. And the door requirement for those areas also is normally 900 door. to ensure that furniture and people can go out of the door. And also, they also look at the location of the building, how you locate the building, so that you have adequate parking and vehicles can go in and out of the building. Qualification of individuals or corporation doing the work. Normally, the qualification of the contracting firm is normally checked, and to ensure that people that are doing the work are of minimum required standard. And for high structures and anti-collision marks for the benefits of aircraft. Normally, if you look at very high structures, if you look at skyscrapers, on top of the skyscraper, there is always an indicator light that will be beeping 24 hours of the day, 24/7, in case there are aircraft, so that you know that there's an obstruction there, and not just for skyscrapers, even normal telecommunication masts on top of it, you will see a beeping light there to warn aircraft that there's a structure here, beware, so that they don't go and hit those structures at any point in time. Building Code Administration. National Building Code of Nigeria was first released in 2006. This code is being revised presently. The National Council of Housing and the National Code, the National Council of Housing and Urban Development deemed this fit to initiate the process of evolving a national building code with a view to offer a lasting solution to the hazardous trend of building construction industry. You have a lot of building collapse, and because these buildings do not meet with the minimum requirement of this code, and that's why you have building collapse. That's why the enforcement of the standard is becoming stronger and even heavier now to avoid building collapse. Aim of building code. The aim of building code is one, to set minimum standards on building pre-design and design, construction and post-construction stage. Construction is what is happening. Post-construction stage is where the FM deal. Normally, there's a code that gives you the minimum required standard to be able to manage a building based on global international best practice, with a view to ensuring quality, safety, and proficiency in the building industries. The aim of that is to ensure that any building that is being managed, that is being built, the minimum required standard is met so that the building is fit for habitation. So that people do not live in building and they are afraid that the building is going to collapse, and which will cause a lot of disaster. Objectives of building code: to encourage professionals in the building industry to, one, provide the most appropriate code suited for their own environment, and also to subsequently use and apply same. One, they provide the code that is tailored and suitable for their own environment, and to ensure that those codes are being used as required. Scope of the building code: it applies to and controls all matters concerning design and specification. It also manages costing and construction alterations. It looks at also addition to moving, demolition, or location. You may say, oh, I'm not doing a new building. The code also covers renovations, also covers movement, also covers demolition. When you need to demolish a building, in fact, in Lagos State, now, if you need to develop, you need to go and get a permit before you can demolish the building. If you don't get a permit, the state will come and take over your structure. Repair and use of any building or structure. If you are doing any repair works, there are codes. In fact, in Lagos State, you cannot do renovation without a permit. You must get renovation permit. For existing or proposed building work within the Federal Republic of Nigeria, you must ensure that the building code is applied, and then you must look. If you look at for the requirements for an enforcement, pre-design stage, this is when the talks is being done. This phase, the phase of analysis that occurs after some form of funding is available and before design begins. This is when you are doing you are trying to take off the construction, the building design itself. You are trying to, oh, this thing I want to do, how do I manage it? And then that's when you take that decision. You have a code for that to give you and to guide you through the process. And during the pre-design stage, studies are done to analyze space requirement issues. Studies are done to analyze space requirement issue, the constraints and opportunities of the proposed site, the costs vis-a-vis the budget. Look at the cost versus the budget. It's very important. And the pre-design phase may include site analysis, programming, construction cost analysis, and value engineering. That's before the main design. You look at that, we do high-level costings, high-level design, high-level considerations, do case studies to ensure that things are done the way they should be done. Pre-design stage, preliminary design, that's the design stage. Now, you look at the major emphasis upon the civil, mechanical, and the architectural design. This is when, if you are doing a building, the preliminary designs are what we call conceptual design, where the architect puts together all the thoughts, and then every other person comes in and says, oh, this thing is working, this thing can work. Design of all mechanical processes, architectural concepts, if required, are developed, and structural design systems are identified. All the required site investigations are made before completion of the design. And also a sufficient number of drawings are then completed to communicate the design concept. Also, we should look at the number of drawings required is strictly dependent upon the size and the complexity of the project. The size and the complexity of the project, the final and the stuff that you need, the number of drawings that you require. Also, final design. For the final design stage, the determined architectural and engineering drawings are the blueprint of all the physical components of the project are produced. And then in some complex projects, the final design report is written in addition to the blueprint, in addition to the drawing, they do a design report. Virtually all the design problems must have been resolved before the end of the final design stage. Sufficient details must be provided by the drawings and the reports to allow reasonable estimates of one, the construction cost, two, the operation cost, and three, also look at the construction schedule, which is the program of works. Look at all revisions to the construction material and machineries, and also the equipment and specification that are to be used, and updated schedule, cost, and specification are contained in the final design report. In the design report. Construction stage. The construction stage commences after the finalization of the design. In a traditional model, the appointment of a contractor to undertake the construction of the facility. Normally, it's good to always appoint a contractor to help to manage the facility, to manage the construction of the facility, so that you can easily ensure that things are done the right way and what needs to be done are done accordingly. Some persons will do what we call direct labor. I don't always advise direct labor, except you are in the construction field yourself. But even at that, direct labor is not always the best. It's just better you give a contractor. Though it may be a little too expensive, but it's always better to be able to go, and you must choose the right contractor anyway. It encompasses all works on site, and also look at the construction, covers all the work requirements to deliver the final project. The contractor, if you're looking at contractor, what does the contractor do? The responsibility is responsible to undertake all the work that is needed to be done, either the major contractor or the subcontractors. And you also make a provision of all the contractors, also make provision for all the material, labor, plants, and equipment to be used. That's in the standard place in Nigeria. There's some place they'll give you that they'll tell you you will do labor only contract. You construct all the things that you need to construct, but they will supply the materials. That's just a twist into that. But whichever one, you ensure that you pick the right contractor to be able to do the job. We also look at control the subsequent and coordination of all the works that needs to be done. The construction controls the works that needs to be done on site with other subcontractors that may work under them. Also is responsible to coordinate with the works and other parties as it were. Post-construction stage. This includes adjustment, optimization, modification of the building system, to meet specific requirements. Sometimes you may need to do some level of adjustments here and there. And that's why normally during construction, immediately after construction, the contractor is required to produce what we call as-built drawings. That as-built drawings, what it does is that it gives the final finish of interpretation of what is standing at the building, because during the design stage, some things might have been added. Those things that are added may slightly be different from what was initially designed. So by the time you capture it into the as-built drawings, you will now be able to say, okay, this drawings captures exactly what is required to be done. The objective is to maintain building performance throughout the useful life of the facility. The objective is to ensure that the building is performing optimally throughout the useful life of the structure. Deferred liability period. Now, deferred liability period is required in construction. A lot of work that needs to be done. A set of period of time after a construction project is completed has been completed, during which the contractor has the right to return to site to remedy defects. Once there are any defects in the building, normally any building construction you do is never finished. What you actually get is what we call practical completion. That's where once you get to practical completion, the building is handed over to the client comes to use the building, and you now have a period of deferred liability period. That period is typically between 6 to 12 months, and that period, any defects that may happen in the building that is not due to the client's problem will be fixed by the contractor. The contractor will come back at no cost to the client. The contractor will fix it. But if it's the client that destroys it, the client will pay. But it's just like your warranty or your guarantee that you normally get for your electronic gadgets that you buy. Deferred liability period will only arise if they are included in the contract. Most contracts have deferred liability period, and they always are every time. By default these days, there's no contract that has the purpose of a deferred liability period. For the contractor, it is likely to be more economical and efficient for it to carry out remedial works itself than to pay the cost of another contractor hired by the employer to do it. Now, for deferred liability, once there is a defect, the contractor, it's cheaper for the contractor to just go and do it than for the client to go and get somebody else. And if somebody else does it, the deferred liability, they will take out of the money for the deferred liability period to pay the contractor appointed by the client. So it's always better for the contractor itself to do it. From the client's perspective, it will not need to hire an alternate contractor to carry out the work, or to carry out the work itself and reclaim the costs. The client will not need to hire any other contractor to carry out the work that they need to do, because everything would have been properly catered for. Okay, before we go into building design classification, I want us to take a short break now, and for another 5 to 10 minutes, and then we'll return by 6:05. I hope that's fine with everybody. I hope it's fine with us. We'll go on a break now.
Yes, sir.
All right then.
Thank you.
Thank you. We return it.
Thank you, sir.
6:05. Hello, can we start now? Hello, can we continue?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
great.
Yes, sir.
All right, great. Yeah, we're looking at building classifications. There are different buildings and different classifications. We see how they are classified, and then that will be the useless. We'll take our questions. We have use group A, assembly. This is with buildings with or without an auditorium, in which persons assemble for amusement, entertainment, or recreation. Buildings that with or without an auditorium, which people assemble for amusement, entertainment, or recreation. It's referred to theaters, to big halls that events happen for several purposes. We now have Group B, business use and professional uses. All buildings and structure used for transaction of business, renting professional service. Office buildings. That's where you have office, where you have professional bodies like ICANN building, Nigerian Institute of Architects building, and those professionals in the buildings. Then you have and also under this category of buildings, you have all the offices, buildings, banks, and all that, where they transact multi-office structures and all that. That's where all those buildings go into this business and use buildings for professional. That's Group B. Group C, educational uses. That's talking about educational buildings, all buildings and structures used for business or vocational training, for school, university, for training facilities, and so on. D, look at the factory and industrial use. All buildings and structure which occupants are engaged in performing work or labor in fabrication and assembly or processing of products and material, just basically factories. Look at E, high hazard buildings. All structures that all buildings and structures used for the manufacturing and processing of generation or storage of corrosive, toxic, inflammable, and explosive materials. Why this has to be grouped separately is very important, so that buildings that are used to produce flammable or explosive or toxic substance are normally grouped separately, because normally they treat those buildings separately, so that you don't have chemicals and all that affecting people, because those areas are normally very secluded areas. Then you have the category G. We talk about the mercantile uses. All buildings and structure used for display and sales purpose, incidental to such purpose, and access to the public. This is where you have what's it called, shopping malls and all that, and that's where you have the classification of G. You have classification H. H has to do with residential buildings, residential use. All buildings and structure which families or household live in, which sleeping accommodation. This is just for residential. You have Group I, storage uses. This is for warehousing. All these warehouses, large warehouses, that's where the group's under. You have a Group J, which has to do with mixed use occupancy. Mixed use buildings, buildings that combines either offices or residential, office, hotel, and all that. You now have that full classification, that's K, where the building is not, you don't know what it's going to be used for. Maybe you just have a large hall that was used for construction at the time, and after a while it was abandoned and people can use it for another thing. Then you also now have G, L, utility or miscellaneous structures or buildings that are accessories, characters, and miscellaneous structures. They don't have any clear definition. They don't fall into all these groups, but they can be used for anything. It can be used for parking, it can be used for store, it can be used for anything. That's where Group L comes in. This Group K and L are not very popular, but you still have them scattered around. Then energy efficiency in building. According to IE statistics for energy balance for 2020, 204 and 205 and 7 edition, the total energy consumption, energy using global, accounts for about 7,202 megatons oil equivalent, and then the residential and commercial sectors account for respectively 1,900 151 megatons and 633 megatons, which amounts to about 40% of the final energy use in the world. Improvement in buildings efficiency efficiency at planning stage is relatively. Now, it's very important for us to note that at this point in time that once you are doing your building plan, that is the best time to employ energy efficiency when the electrical people are doing their designs. That's when you have to now implement all the major things that has to do with please, somebody unmute yourself. You need to
don't drop.
mute yourself, please. Okay. So for during design stage, like I said, that's when most of the times you have the time to be able to prevent and put a lot of energy savings into the planning. Improvement after their initial construction are much more difficult. When construction has been done, improvement becomes more difficult. Decision made during a building project phase determines the consumption over much of a building lifestyle. Now, during the construction phase, the decision that is taken in terms of the construction normally will affect how the building consumption. Like now, when you are doing a building, the electrical and mechanical fittings, if you design it in such a manner that the mechanical and electrical fittings are fitted in such a manner that you use most of the energy saving equipment, inverter direct air conditioning system, inverter direct blower system, inverter direct cookers, inverter direct refrigerators and all that. If you design that into the building, it's easier to now do that because all the wattage of the building that you now consumption will drop, and then to help to promote a good energy efficiency of the building. And also, if you're not going to solar panels and all that, if you design the building around solar, it will give you very good energy efficient and goes towards a green building. Some measures to improve energy efficiency are possible only during construction or by major refurbishment. Improvements will be very cost effective when implemented at the project stage, can be expensive at the later stage. The increased interest will spur the demand for refurbishment. This refurbishment provides a compelling opportunity to improve the building efficiency. Requirements for energy efficiency by refurbishment are therefore an important issue which should be included in building code. Now, normally, sometimes when you do renovations and all that, that's also another opportunity for you to improve the building standard and the building code, efficiency of the building. Building maintenance and standard. What is building maintenance standard? Minimum standards for design, construction, and alteration of virtually every building. That's when you're talking about building maintenance standard itself. The standards are developed by the government, professional bodies, etc. Like IFMA has its own standard that any company that is registered to IFMA will work by. Contains a list of requirements that are designed to ensure minimum standard of health safety and welfare of both the people that are staying in the building and those that are working in the building. Purpose for building standard: to achieve a minimum standard for building work, that whatever work is being carried out in the building, the minimum standard needs to be done, needs to be maintained. It applies to most types of building, including domestic, commercial, and industrial buildings, especially related to the technical aspect of the building, the set of standards for the design and construction of buildings. Objectives of building standards. 1, to remake with amendment the regulation which controls the design, construction, and use of building and place of public entertainment, to also describe the standard for the construction and the demolition of buildings. That's the objectives of building standard. Building standard helps to describe the standards for construction and demolition. Take the note, demolition is not only to construct, demolition is also an important part of the demolition is also an important part of the structure. To also describe standards of safety for place of public entertainment, how public amusement park, stadiums and thereabouts, places where people go, parks, to ensure that the public are safe and they can enjoy themselves where they are recreated. To regulate matters relating to the use and maintenance of buildings and place of public entertainment. Also, this prescribes requirements for the design and siting of single dwelling and associated building. It also prescribes standards and matters relating to the maintenance of fire safety and safety measures. Also prescribe requirements for swimming pool, spa and safety, spa safety, etc. Is building regulation approval the same as obtaining building permits? The answer is no. This is a question that we need to answer. This, I think this should be the last slide. Is a building regulation approval the same as obtaining building permit? The answer is no, no. There are two different things. You can have building permit and not go and not maintain not have the building regulation approval because you did not build according to permits. The building regulation approval does not mean the same as obtaining a planning permit for your work. Being granted planning permit is not the same as taking action to ensure the work complies with the building approval, with the building regulation. Generally, you will have to adhere to the building regulations for your building works or internal alterations of the property, and you may not require planning approval. For many types of building, you may need to apply for building regulation and planning permits separately. Of course, that's what happens in Lagos. You apply for it separately. You have your building regulation approval. You also have your planning permit approval separately for different structures. Okay, thank you very much. That's the last slide. So I'll take our questions quickly now, and then we'll go from there. Thank you very much for your time. So questions, please. Okay, let's take our questions now. Okay, I think Emmanuel, I can see your hand.
Thank you very much.
Okay, good evening. Okay, let me take Miriam. Go ahead.
Thank you very much for this exposition. For those of us that are not really in the built environment. Okay, what keeps coming to my mind is apparently there are many rules, there are many processes, procedures, and everything that has been put in place by government. But I see that, is it that there are no sanctions for people that do not observe these things? And that is why we still have all this building collapsing all around us and killing people.
Okay, quickly, there are sanctions.
Yeah, is it that there are no sanctions to
if
they don't observe these things? You know?
Yeah, it's just the corrupt system of the country. That's why people are not getting sanctioned, but they are sanctioned. Let me just tell you up, first of all, for any building collapse in Lagos State, I'll use Lagos State as a guinea pig. Any building collapse, one, the professionals on that building will lose their license. Two, the owner of the building will be sanctioned, will pay a lot of fine. Three, the owner of the building will lose the property to the Lagos State government. So those three sanctions exist. And when there's a loss of life, both the owner of the building and the contractor will be charged for murder.
Good, very good.
Hello, Miriam. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, you have. Thank you very much. Thank you.
But you know that Nigeria, because of corruption, most of these people go scot-free. But they're on ground, they are there. So the day one government wakes up and do the right thing, they'll be in trouble. Okay, let's take Yomi, Emmanuel.
Good evening, sir, and thanks for the teaching, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
In the course of your teachings, you talked about environment, that before you can do anything, you need to get the environmental approval. I wouldn't
Environmental
know.
impact analysis.
Okay, environmental impact analysis. Is it that when someone want to start a building now, someone will go to Alausa and tell them, I want to start building, I need the code for all these things, I need this. And in that code is ISO 45001. Is it part of them, or how do someone go about all of these things, sir?
Okay. Okay, now, let me tell you the way this thing works. If you want to start a new building, you contact an architect. The architect will take a requirement. Now, the architects, engineers, they know about the code and they know what to do to meet the code. You don't need to know as a layman, you don't need all those plenty grammar. This is the job of the architects and engineers. They have the code and they know what's in the code. In fact, part of the things that architects and engineers are taught in the university, the code is part of most of the things that is being taught to the architect and the engineers are the things that are inside the code. So by default setting, they know the code even without reading it. They open it to read. It is what they already know in school that is already written down in the code. The code is very big. It's a very big book. Now, you want to do a building. Once you contact the architect will tell you what your land can take. And once your design is done, and the architect takes it to the planning approval, or you take it yourself, the planning authorities will look at your drawing and they compare it with the rules and the standards that they have set in their different states and what they need to do. And the architect traditionally knows exactly what they want, and your building is supposed to comply. Where they have to do corrections, they will let you know. They will just do you a memo and say, okay, this is fine, please adjust A, adjust B, adjust C, adjust D. Immediately those adjustments is done on the building plan and you send back to them, they will approve it and say good to go. Both the architectural and the engineering drawings will be checked and approved. Once that is done, there are some payments you are supposed to pay to Lagos State and all the agency. Once you make those payments and do all that, you are giving your building plan approval. It is that simple. But it's just that because of human error and human problem, they will always want to stretch you unnecessarily. They will make you take more money from you. It's supposed to be very simple. The approval is one thing. The next thing is the compliance, which is the regulation. By the time you have started your building, they will come and visit to check that this approval we have given you, you are following it. If you do not follow it, they will seal up your site and they will void that your approval they've given to you. That's why it's very important to follow the approved drawing that you have been given. But Nigerians have a way of always beating this system by bribing all the task force and all the operations that come to monitor. That's why most of the times when Lagos State or any state government wants to conduct any demolition work along any area because of road and all that, they will tell you to bring your approved building plan. A lot of people do not have. That's why they cannot be compensated. It's only those that have that they will get compensation for, because the government would have approved it. And once the government has approved it, and what is on ground is what government has approved, they will pay you compensation. So that's why people go into all these problems and have all this. Emmanuel, I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, you have, sir. So, but sorry, sir, in getting all this approval, someone will be making payment too.
Yes, now you make payment. Now you make that statutory payment you need to make. We'll give you receipt, sir. They are receipted payments. It's a statutory payment you make. They will do what we call they will do assessment for the structure. They have standard. They will write it out for you and you will pay. After you have paid, then the other one that you are paying PRO that is not receipted, that's your business. But the state will collect its official money. Very important.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. These are things we do every day, so we know the process. Juliana, let's take you and then I'll go to Ernest.
All right, sir. Thank you for the class. I wanted to ask, is it possible to use the approval for a 5-story building to build a, let's say more than 5-story building, let's say up to 10-story building or thereabouts?
That's criminal. No, it's not proper.
Okay.
In fact, they'll come and sue your site. Lagos State will come and sue your site.
Okay.
And they will even jail you. They'll take you to court as being a criminal.
Okay. Another thing I want to ask is you talk about the approval and the permit. So I wanted to know which one of it is more important. Is it the approval, the regulatory approval, or the permit
Both are important. Without both, you cannot do anything.
Oh, wow.
You must get both. Normally, that's what you always get. This is what we do every day. You will get the permit, and you also get the regulatory approval.
Okay.
It's very important. Yeah, they will give you.
Thank you.
It's not like it's not. Once you comply, they will give it to you.
Okay.
They may just delay you, but they will give it to you. You don't have a choice.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ernest, please.
Okay. During the course of the lecture, you spoke about direct labor and contract, and you tilted more to contract. I really want to get clarification on that. Why are there situations where the direct labor might be better, or I believe there will be situations where the direct labor might be better. So I want to have clarification on that.
Okay. Why I tilted more to contracting, because contracting is an easier part to manage. It gives you less stress. You are not very involved in all the procurement processes because you have already paid somebody to do it. You just probably what you just do is just to maintain. You just have somebody to ensure that whatever you have paid for is supplied on site. Direct labor will stress you, except your experience in the field. Like somebody like me now that is in the construction industry, in the beauty industry, I can do direct labor because I know exactly what is to be done. I can do direct labor. Maybe if I want to build my own house now, or probably I'm doing a project that is personal to myself, I can do direct labor. I can manage myself because I have all the experience. It's easier for me to do that. I know the things that need to be bought. I know everything. But you, as an individual that is not schooled in it, if you do direct labor, you will have a lot of issues. You won't be able to know the right thing to be done. You will be too involved in the process, and it may be, except you don't mind. Anyway, direct labor is normally cheaper, because you will probably go and buy the materials yourself, and then you get the labor to install it. It's supposed to be cheaper, but from the Nigerian system, because most Nigerians are not honest enough, especially the artisans, you end up spending more, because whatever mistake that is made on the construction project, you are the one paying for it. It's not the contractor. If let's say you buy 20 square meters of tiles, and when the tiler started laying the tiler made mistake, I say, oh, I don't like this tile, the way you lay it, remove it and relay it. By the time it's removing it, and some of the tiles get damaged, you will be the one to go and buy the tile that got damaged. It is not the tiler that will buy it, because it is direct labor. But if you give a contractor, if you come there and you see that the tile is not properly, and I say, this contractor, I don't like this tile, remove it. It is the contractor that will bear that cost, not you as the person that got it. I hope I've clarified it to Ernest.
Yes, you have.
Okay, great. Let's take Bumi. Bumi, please, your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the class. Yeah, you spoke about planning permission. So I was wondering, planning what?
Planning approval.
Yeah. Okay. At what point does one need planning of what? I don't know.
Okay,
like
sorry.
I've not heard it before.
You have not heard it before?
I'm not sure. I'm building permits and all that, but not planning.
Wait. Let me explain to you. It's the same thing that you have heard. It's just that maybe it's just terminology. It is building planning permit.
Okay.
The architectural drawing, the engineering drawing. Once you do that, they'll give you a permit. That permit that they give you is called the building planning permit. Then why you want to go to construction, that they'll give you another permit. That one is coming from the regulatory people. They give you like a approval to construct. And once they give you that, they will come every stage for construction till you finish. And that the agency that does that is Last Bank in Lagos State. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, madam. So let's take Yomi again. Emmanuel.
Thank you, sir. We are just talking, I think your teachings is based on big projects. For instance, now I'm not doing a big project. I just want to build bungalow or my duplex. And I don't want to use architect.
You cannot do it without architect. In Lagos State, you will not get planning permits.
Wow. So what about when I have these people that can build very well? That we have some guys.
Whether they can build anything, Emmanuel, don't just deceive yourself. In Lagos State, if you will never get a building plan permit if you do not use an architect, because they require a professional to be sure that one, all the things you have done is correct. Even if the person knows how to do it, the person is a quack. The person must get an architect to do that design and to draw it out for you and present it to the planning permit authorities. That is when they will recognize it. In fact, when you go to the office and you present your plan, first thing they will ask you is that where is the architect? So that you cannot run away from it. Before, that one is in the village. If you want to build your village house, you just feel that someone knows how to do it. Put one room here, cut it like, be like this one that is there. That's fine. In that is village. But in Lagos State, no, you cannot do that. Emmanuel, I hope you are clear.
Very clear, sir. Very clear.
So please employ the service of an architect. Come and pay us. I'm an architect, so pay me my money.
No problem, sir.
You think Lagos State does not have sense? So that's what they do. So any more questions? Okay. If there are no more further questions at this juncture, I hope we have learned something from this class at least. I want to thank you for your time. And like I always say, if you have any questions outside this class, please, you can write it and send it to the secretariat to forward it to me, and I'll answer and send back to you for the benefit of everybody. Thank you for your time. Please take out time to also go through the slides and read again. And open your eyes in your facilities as we are discussing these things. If you open your eyes, it will become clear. You discover that you are seeing things better and in a different way, and you begin to understand and relate to a lot of the things you have been saying in class. It will just look like your eyes are seeing something different that you have been seeing every day. It is until you get involved with the activities that happens in your facility that you become a better facility manager. Thank you very much for your time, and do have a good evening. God bless you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank you very much, sir. We really appreciate it.
Wow. Thank you, sir. Wow. Wow.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good night, sir.
Thank you. Good night. Have a blessed night.
Thank you
Thank you,
so
sir.
much. Have a good night.
Thank you.